Hey, welcome back, guys. In this video, we're going to be finding area of a circle, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you. All right, so let's get started. Rugs.com sells 4 feet non-slip circular rugs for $78. How much space will it cover in a 10 by 12 office? All right, so the first thing I want us to think about is it says how much space will it cover. Automatically, that means area. So typically on a STAAR test or it may be a teacher test, it's not going to specifically say area. You have to kind of extract that information. If it's talking about covering up and some space, that's area. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Now in this case, it actually gave us a picture of the rug and it said it was 4 feet. However, that is actually the diameter. We don't need the diameter. If you notice on the formula, we're actually going to use radius, and the radius starts from the edge of the circle and it goes all the way to the center, and it's half. So in this case, our radius would be 2 feet. Now that we know that, we'll go ahead and plug it in. A equals pi r squared, and r squared just means r times r. You don't have to write r times r, but I feel like a lot of people forget and they just go times 2. In this case, it would work out. All right, so my radius is 2. And then my pi is 3.14. I'm going to go 2 times 2 is 4. Times that by 314. Now, or 3.14. And pi is not 3.14. We just use that. When you get to higher grade levels, you'll actually probably use a calculator with the pi button. 4 times 4 is 16. We're not lining up decimals. I see that where kids line up decimals, add a 0, 4, 5, 1256. All right, and I just want you to know that if decimals are not your thing, on one of the next problems, I will show you just how to ignore them and then put them back in. So our area for this is 12.56 feet squared. Let's go to our next problem. It says Big Inspiration Studio uses copper foil to cover the completed stained glass. How much foil will the Big Inspiration Glass Studio need to cover? So the cover is your hint to say this is area and it's not circumference. Okay, now in this case, it's a semicircle. So in 7th grade, you need to know the area of a circle, semicircle, and quarter circle. There's no specific formula. You use the same one, you just divide by 2 at the end. And once again, they gave us the diameter, and we know that we actually need the radius. So the radius of this would be 8 feet. So I'm going to use my formula, area equals pi r squared. I'm going to use 3.14 for pi. My radius is 8. And then 8 times 8 is 64. Now I'm going to multiply 64 times 3.14. You don't have to line up decimals. You just multiply. I tell my students, if decimals aren't your thing, just take out the decimal. There's 2 decimal places. I took them out. 314 times 64. 16, 4, 5, 12. All right, so it's definitely not 20,096. Remember, we got to go back and put the decimals. There were 2 decimal places in the original question, so there should be 2 in the answer. Now, that's not my answer because that's an entire circle, and I have to divide that by 2. So half of 200 is 100, and half of 96 is 48, so it's 100.48 feet squared. All right, we have one more, and I would encourage you to pause the video, try to solve it yourself, and then come back and check with me. All right, guys, it says a circular rug has a diameter of 9 feet. What is the area of the rug? I didn't do any tricks, except I gave you diameter. So hopefully you realize we don't need diameter. We're going to use the 9. We'll label it. I think that's not a bad idea. And then just kind of force your brain to go, wait a minute, I need radius, which goes from the edge of the circle to the center. In this case, will be 4.5. So area equals pi r squared, and then that's r is for the radius, so it's 4.5 times 4.5. You're going to get that, and then you'll times that by 3.14. And so there's no lining up decimals. It's just 4.5 times 4.5. This is 5 times 4 is 20, 22, 16, 18. Okay, so our answer is 20.25. However, I still have not finished it because that's just squaring the radius. I said answer, I didn't mean to. We still have to multiply that by 3.14, which is definitely a doozy. This is where I am impressed with folks that know how to use that lattice multiplication, or even the area model would work. This is a hot mess, but just bear with me. 8, I'm going to push through with you. And if it was multiple choice, I tell my students, just use 3. I mean, if your teacher makes you use it, then obviously you should do that. But I'm saying I haven't ever seen a STAAR problem with it being ingridable, but I guess it could happen. I would pray this is not ever on the STAAR test because this was a hot mess. You know, I made it up. But I always like to challenge my students and push them as far as they don't realize how far they can go until they get pushed. So 5, 7, that's 8, 15, 3, 6. Now let's go back to our decimal places. I originally had 2 here, meaning I have a total of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's make our life easier and just round it to the 10th place, and the 10th place is 5. So meaning it would go up to 63.6 feet squared. Thanks for watching. If it kind of helped, I would encourage you to hit like and subscribe for future videos. Thanks.